Welcome back, learners, to our interesting course based on the theme Rudimentary Principles and Practices of Managerial Economics. In the last lecture, we talked about different types of pricing policy. In this lecture, module number 7, lecture number 34, we will be covering up a very important topic, that is method of pricing policy on the basis of cost. Before going deeper into this, I want to tell you that there are two basic methods of pricing policy, first being on the basis of cost and the other one being on the basis of market. In the next presentation, in the next lecture, we will be talking of the market. In this lecture, we will be focusing on the basis of cost, methods of pricing policy on the basis of cost. So, method of pricing policy on the basis of cost, as you are able to see on the screen, there are four basic or important methods which should be considered. The first being full cost or cost plus method, the second one being break even point method, as you are already aware, in the situation where there is no profit or no loss method, rate of return method, or marginal or incremental cost method. So, one by one we will be taking up all these four methods. The first one being full cost or cost plus method. The full cost or cost plus method is a pricing strategy widely employed by businesses to determining the selling price of the product or services. This approach involves calculating the total cost first of all. In this aspect, first of all, we will be calculating total cost incurred in the production, which means the first hand we will be trying to estimate the total cost involved in the production, marketing and distribution of goods, and then adding a predetermined markup to cover desired profit margins, which means first of all we will be adding all the cost involved in the production, and in the second aspect we will be covering the desired profit margins by that specific firm. Essentially, it ensures that all expenses associated with bringing a product to market are accounted for, which means whatever expenses or whatever cost have incurred, that is marked here, that is ascertained here, providing a comprehensive basis for setting prices, which means the cost plays a very relevant role in the full cost or cost plus method. This method is mostly adopted by producers, wholesalers and retailers. The formula for here is price per unit is average cost per unit plus desired profit. So, you need to have an average cost estimation, and in that you will be adding the desired profit the firm wants to attire or get. The second formula is that total cost plus total desired profit upon number of total units. So, based on these two formulas, you can be able to calculate full cost or cost plus method, the price for any specific good or services. In this, basically, first of all we determine the cost and we try to add the desired profit in that cost. The advantage of cost plus method: simplicity. This is one of the most simple or easy method. The full cost methods offer a straightforward and easily understandable pricing mechanism. There is no rocket science involved in this. By incorporating all costs which have been involved in the production into the calculation, business can avoid complexity of tricky pricing models, which means this is one of the most simplest model. There is no rocket science involved here, and easily you can calculate the price in this method. The next is cost recovery. It includes all expenses in the pricing formula, ensures that the selling price adequately covers production cost, overhead and other associated expenses, which means all the cost related to the production of that specific good or service is covered here. No cost here is ignored. This helps in achieving cost recovery and contributes to the financial sustainability of the business, which means the cost with whatever you have made is covered here, as well as good amount of revenue can be generated by the respective firm. The third is related to transparency. Since the price is based on tangible cost, what you are able to see, and a predetermined markup of profit, it offers transparency to both the parties, that is internal stakeholders and customers, which means it covers the interest of all the people who are involved directly or indirectly with the firm. It is transparent in nature. This transparency can enhance trust and credibility in pricing decisions with the customers as well as all the people associated with the firm. So the three basic advantage of cost plus method is that it is very simple in nature, it is easy to calculate. The second is the cost which have been involved in it can be recovered here, and the third is that proper transparency is there in this method. Moving ahead to the limitations of cost plus method, the market dynamics are ignored here. As you are aware that the market is not constant, it keeps on changing from time to time. So that aspect has been ignored in this cost plus method. The full cost method does not take into account market demand, competitors' pricing strategy or customers' perception, which means it is not considering the other factors. As a result, it may lead to pricing decisions that do not reflect actual market conditions, potentially resulting in loss of sale or reduced profitability, which means the market dynamism or the movement of market is being ignored in this cost plus method, which can be sometimes a big challenge or problem for the firm. So that is a limitation of this cost plus method. The second is lack of flexibility. The fixed markup used in full cost method may not adapt well to changes in market conditions, cost fluctuations or shift in consumer preferences. This lack of flexibility can hinder the ability to respond effectively to dynamic market, which means the flexibility aspect is missing here, and the market, as you are aware, is not constant, because here we consider the costs which have incurred as well as the expected profit, and we are not able to be very flexible in our nature. So this is one of the limitation of cost plus method. The next point is potential for overpricing or underpricing. Depending solely on cost and a predetermined markup may result in prices that are either too high, leading to decreased sales volume, or too low, compromising profitability, which means in this cost plus method there can be circumstances in which the product can be overpriced or underpriced, as here we are only considering the cost and the expected profit from the market without considering external factors such as customer value perception or competitors pricing. The pricing may not be optimized for market success, which means due to ignorance of certain factors, the price may be overpriced or underpriced, which might be a problem for the firm and even for the consumers. So as in this limitation slide, we have discussed 3 points: that the market dynamics are ignored here. The second is the flexibility aspect is missing here, and in the third, there can be cases of overpricing of a product or even underpricing of the product. Moving to the next method, that is based on marginal or incremental cost pricing policy method. The marginal or incremental cost pricing policy is a strategic approach used by any business to determine the selling price of a goods or services based on the marginal cost incurred in producing an additional unit. As you are aware, whenever we talk of the marginal approach, we talk of the additional unit. So that is being considered here. Whenever we talk of the cost which have occurred by producing one additional or extra unit here. Unlike the full cost method, which considers the associated with production, the marginal cost pricing policy focuses solely on the additional cost incurred by producing one more unit. As you are aware, in the full cost method, we were taking into consideration the full cost involved in the process, but in this one, we are only considering the cost involved in producing one more unit. This cost is particularly useful in situations where fixed costs are already covered, which means we implement this marginal or incremental cost pricing policy in those situations or circumstances only where fixed costs have already been covered by the firm in the long run, and businesses are primarily concerned with optimizing revenue and maximizing profitability through efficient resource allocation, which means it can be applied mainly with the concept of optimizing revenue and increasing their profit through proper or effective utilization of the available resources. So, in this marginal cost method, we try to understand the meaning of it, and in this method we try to understand the cost by producing one extra unit in the production house. The advantages of marginal or incremental cost pricing method: the first is that optimized resource allocation. Here the fuller utilization of resources can be done by producing goods, products or services based on marginal cost. Business can ensure that resources are allocated efficiently. This approach encourages production only when marginal revenue exceeds marginal cost. This is an important point. This approach encourages production only in that situation where marginal revenue is more than marginal cost, leading to optimal utilization of resources and automatically in generation of maximum profitability for the respective firm. So, the first advantage of this method is that it optimizes or uses the resources in a better or efficient way. The second one is that responsive to market demand. Marginal cost pricing allows businesses to adjust prices dynamically in response to change in the market demand or production capacity. So, this is one of the biggest advantage of this method, that according to the market demand the prices can be changed here. Since prices are based on variable cost and not on fixed cost, businesses can quickly adapt to market changes or fluctuations and maintain the competition existing in the market. So, another very important advantage of this method is that it adapts to the changes in the market and the prices are changed according to the market or situation. Here the variable costs are given more importance and fixed costs are ignored. And in the third point, it promotes economic efficiency. Marginal products at marginal cost promotes economic efficiency by aligning production level with consumer demand, which means the economic efficiency is in the line with the production as well as the demand of the consumers, and this prevents underutilization of resources and overproduction, leading to improved allocation of scarce resources in the economy, which means in this method the economic efficiency point can be met and it could help in generation of maximum revenue for the firm. So, in the advantages of marginal cost method, we discussed 3 points. First was optimized resource allocation, second was responses to market demand, and third was it promotes economic efficiency. Now, moving to the limitations of marginal or incremental cost pricing policy. The first and the biggest limitation here is that it neglects the fixed cost involved in the process. The marginal cost pricing policy ignores fixed cost, and this is the biggest demerit, such as overhead expenses, capital investment, which are essential or very important for long term business viability. While marginal cost pricing may optimize short term profitability, it may not cover the full cost of operations, potentially leading to financial instability in the long run. So, the biggest challenge or demerit of this marginal costing is that it ignores the fixed cost, which is an important part of the system, of the production system. The second is that potential for revenue loss. Pricing solely based on marginal cost may result in lower prices than those set using full cost method, which means here the focus is on marginal cost, which might result into losses for the firm, especially if the fixed costs are significant or important in certain cases. So, wherever there is involvement of fixed cost and that is not ascertained or included, it might result into financial revenue losses for the specific firm. While this may attract consumers in the short run, it can lead to revenue loss and undermine the financial sustainability of the business if not carefully managed. The third one being complexity in cost allocation. Calculating marginal cost accurately may be challenging task, particularly in industries with complex cost structure and variable cost production process, which means the calculation of cost here is a complicated process. Businesses must accurately identify and allocate variable cost associated with each additional unit produced to implement marginal cost pricing effectively, which means the variable cost involved here has to be ascertained very carefully, and according to it the pricing has to be done. But this is one of the biggest challenge for the firms involved in the production. So in the limitation of marginal costing method, we discussed 3 points: that it neglects the first involved in the process, the second, it might result into potential for revenue losses, and the third is it is a complicated process to ascertain the cost here. Moving ahead, the next method is rate of return or target pricing method. The rate of return, also known as target pricing, is a pricing policy where the selling price of a product or service is determined based on the achieving a specific rate of return on investment or desired profit margin, which means here the target is predetermined by the firm, how much amount of revenue or how much amount of return the specific product or goods or services is going to provide in the upcoming future. So this approach involves setting prices that will yield or generate a predetermined level of profit, or here we try to estimate or undermine predetermined profit which the product is going to generate in the future relative to the capital invested or expected return on investment, which means the ROI here is tried to be calculated beforehand here, and accordingly the prices are kept here. The rate of return pricing is commonly used in industries with significant capital investment, which means the industries or the companies which have a huge amount of investment, or long production cycles where the profitability is closely tied to achieving targeted returns, which means such kind of pricing policy is basically adopted by companies who have huge amount of capital investment in the market, and in this rate of return method the predetermined ROI is calculated and based on it the pricing is being done. Now the advantages of rate of return method. The first advantage is regarding the profitability focus. The rate of return pricing ensures that pricing decisions are directly linked to the profitability objectives. Here the center is earning profit as per the expected ROI. By setting prices to achieve a targeted rate of return, businesses can maintain financial viability and sustain growth over a long period of time, which means the biggest advantage here is that the focus is on earning profit by the specific good or services, and accordingly all the movements are being done, and which finally results, if the firm is earning profit, it will result into financial good position for the company as well as sustainability in the market. The second point is that financial planning. The establishing target pricing based on desired rate of return, ROI, as we have discussed, desired ROI enables businesses to plan and manage their finances effectively, which means when you are deciding the profit expected or ROI expected in beforehand, accordingly you manage your financial resources in the same manner and you try to use your resources in a more better way. This approach provides clarity on the expected return from investment. When your financial instruments are well managed, there are more chances that you are able to determine the expected return on investment, and facilitates budgeting. Budgeting can be done easily, forecasting can be done, and strategic decision making can be done. So in this, another advantage is that you can properly use your financial resources, and based on that financial planning can be done by the respective firm. The next is a very important point that is related to risk management. As you are aware, the risk is the biggest challenge for any enterprise. The rate of return pricing helps mitigate financial risk associated with capital intensive projects or investment by ensuring that prices cover cost and generate the desired return on investment, businesses can minimize or reduce the risk of financial losses and enhance overall risk management, which means in handling of risk also this rate of return method is a very good method in which you can reduce the risk or even minimize the risk, which can result into financial improvement in the revenue generation. So in this slide we talked about 3 advantages. The first was profitability focus, the second was financial planning, and third was the transfer or reduction in the risk. The next slide talks about limitations of rate of return. The first limitation is related to the market constraints. Setting prices based solely on desired rate of return may not always align with the market demand or competitive dynamics, which means if you are predeterminedly estimating how much ROI you are going to generate, it can be a challenge for the firm, as the market is not constant. The market keeps on changing from time to time. For example, before Corona, if you expected to generate 10% ROI and the market somehow shattered, so you will not be able to generate that amount of profit. So market constraint is the biggest limitation or challenge for the rate of return method. If consumers are unwilling to pay the prices set to achieve the targeted rate of return, businesses may struggle to generate sales volume and revenue, which means if the consumers or the customers are not ready to pay the predetermined prices, it might even result into losses for the specific firm, or the sale of the specific product may decrease. So the biggest limitation is the market constraints are not considered in this rate of return method. The second is complexity in calculation. Calculating the selling price to achieve a specific rate of return requires accurate estimation of cost, sales volume and profit margins, which means here a lot of calculation needs to be done, and deciding it in a very precise way is a very tough task. Businesses must carefully analyze cost structure, market conditions and competitive forces to determine appropriate pricing strategies, which means all the factors here needs to be analyzed and ascertained, and this is the biggest challenge. Precisely calculation of such cost is the biggest challenge for any firm, and if the calculation is not done in the perfect manner, it can result into negative impact for the firm. The third point is rigidity in pricing. The rate of pricing may lack flexibility in this rate of return method to respond to changes in the market conditions or expected events. If market dynamic shifts or cost factor change, businesses may find it challenging to adjust prices accordingly while maintaining targeted rate of return. As we have already talked about, that ROI is predetermined here, but if the market changes, there is a big challenge for the rate of return method to generate the same amount of ROI as predetermined, because the market change will have an impact on the product as well as the firm. So the 3 biggest challenge for rate of return method is that market constraint, second is complexity in calculation or difficulty in calculation, and the third was rigidity in pricing or fixation of pricing. So rate of return pricing can be a valuable or important tool for businesses seeking to align pricing strategies with profitability objectives and manage financial performances effectively. However, it requires very careful consideration of market dynamics, cost factors and risk implications to implement it successfully. So this method, rate of return, is a very effective method, but it needs to be implemented in a very proper way, with very consciously, so that the expected rate of return can be achieved. But somehow, if it is not implemented in a proper way, even it can result into a negative way for the specific firm. Now next method, that is break-even point method. The break-even point method basically refers to the point at which the total cost is equal to total revenue of the firm, and the firm is in position of no profit or no loss, which means the cost here is exactly equal to the total revenue generated by the specific firm, and the firm is not able to generate any profit or any loss. So it is also termed as no profit or no loss method. Achieving economies of scale is one of the objectives of break-even pricing. This is important. It helps the firm to increase its share and put competitors out of the market. This method is mostly suitable at the point of depression in the market or extra competition in the market. So break-even pricing method is that point where the company is not generating any profit or any loss. The formula, as you are able to see for break-even point, is that total fixed cost upon production unit volume plus variable cost per unit. So this is the formula which needs to be applied. Now moving to the advantages of break-even pricing method. The entry barrier is the biggest advantage. The break-even pricing method acts as an entry barrier to discourage entry of new players or new entrants in the market. If you are there, you can sustain in the market for a longer duration of time. The next advantage is that economies of scale. This method helps the firm to achieve the economies of scale and perform effectively or efficiently in the market. And third is pricing strategy for new players. It is an effective method for new entrants as it helps them to understand and achieve the no profit or no loss point as per their performances. So as you are able to see, the three biggest advantages that it acts as an entry barrier for new players, it acts as an economy of scale, and third, it is a good pricing strategy for new players in the market. Now talking about the limitations of break-even point pricing method. First limitation is that it is against the policy of free market. This strategy of break-even point pricing method is against the norm of the free market. So it is a biggest limitation of break-even point. The second point is difficult to sustain. The firm adopting the break-even point method may find it very difficult to sustain in the long run, as there is no profit or no loss due to cutthroat competition in the market. So if you are not generating good amount of profit, you will be automatically out of the market. So in this, the biggest problem is to sustain in the market. And the third challenge is difficult to increase price. The firm may face issue in increasing the price after they set lower prices, as the customer might get affected due to it. If you have kept lower prices and somehow you increase the prices, it might affect the consumers or the customers, and even they might shift to other products. So the three limitations of break-even point method was that it is against the norms of free market, it is difficult for firms to sustain in the market, and third is it is difficult to increase the price in the upcoming period. Thank you, learners. That was all the content we wanted to discuss in this slide. I have discussed with you the pricing policy on the basis of cost. In the next presentation, I will be talking of method of pricing policy on the basis of market. On the basis of cost, there are four methods, as you are able to see. We have discussed the full cost or cost plus method, break-even point method, rate of return method, and marginal or incremental cost method. In full cost method, as I have discussed with you, we take the average cost, and in that we add the total expected desired profit, and that is the price per unit of the product. The another formula was total cost plus total desired profit upon number of total units. Here the cost is ascertained and expected profit is added to it. In full cost method, I discussed with you the advantages of cost plus method. That was, it is simple to calculate. The cost recovery aspect is here. It is transparent in nature. Then I talked about limitations of it. The market dynamics are ignored here. There is lack of flexibility here, and the potential for overpricing or underpricing is also here. Then we talked about the marginal or the incremental cost pricing policy method, in which we talked about the change in price after producing one extra unit. And the biggest challenge here was the fixed cost is ignored here. The focus is on variable cost. Then we discussed the advantages of it. The advantages was optimized resource allocation, responsive to market demand, promotes economic efficiency. The limitation was that it ignores or neglects the fixed cost, potential for revenue losses, and complexity in cost allocation. Then we discussed about rate of return method, in which a specific rate of return is pre-decided by the firm, and according to it the price is decided by the firm. The advantages of this was the profitability is the focus here, financial planning is done here, and risk management is more here. The risk management is done effectively here. The limitation of this method was market constraint, complexity in calculation, rigidity in pricing, and then we finally shifted to the last, that was break-even point pricing method, where we work on the point where there is no profit or no loss. The formula I discussed with you, total fixed cost upon production unit volume plus variable cost per unit. The advantage of it was entry barrier, economies of scale, pricing strategy for new players, and the demerit or limitation of it was it is against free market or norms of free market, difficult for firms to sustain, and difficult to increase the prices in the future period. So that is all in this lecture. We tried to discuss the methods of pricing on the basis of cost. In the next lecture, we will be trying to discuss the method of pricing on the basis of market. So thank you, learners. I hope these lectures are of use for you, and you will be implementing these concepts in your organization, as well as it will be of use for academicians and students in their academic purpose. Thank you for patiently listening to our lecture. Thank you.